Okay, as it's just past 10:30 now, I'll get kicked off, and I'm sure there'll be people that will join just throughout this introduction. So, thank you, those of you who've been waiting, for your patience. Just a big good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for joining this morning's call. The aim of today's webinar is just to simply help you all understand a little bit more about the HS2 Accelerator program. This includes the challenges, the support, the program structure, and the overall eligibility and application process. Just to make you aware, the webinar is being recorded and will be shared to all attendees and the wider public after today's session. I'm just going to move over now to the agenda for the day. So here's a quick breakdown of what we can expect for today's session. So first of all, got some opening remarks from myself, which I'm currently just going through, and then I'll be handing over to the HS2 team, and they're going to be talking a little bit more about HS2 and innovation at HS2 as a whole, as well as going through the program challenges in more detail, just to help understand exactly what those mean. And then we'll hand back to myself, where I'll talk through an introduction to Connected Places Catapult, who we are, what we do, and what our aims are. And then we'll also talk through the program overview. So this is where I'll explain the support for the program, the rough timeline and what you can expect if you are selected, as well as some key dates and things like that. We'll then go through the application process in greater detail, going through each of the application sections and just talking through each of the questions and the eligibility criteria and how that will be scored. And then at quarter past 11, we will break out to a live Q&A. So please do use the Q&A box in the webinar just throughout the session to go through any questions that you have. And at the end of the session at quarter past 11, we'll be going through those Q&As with all of you and answering them live during the webinar. So I'm going to hand it over now to my colleagues Rob and John from HS2 to give you a quick introduction to High Speed 2.
Thank you very much, Jazz, and morning, everyone. Yep, as Jazz mentioned there, it'll be myself, Jonathan Kelly, Senior Innovation Manager at HS2, and my colleague Rob taking us kind of through the introduction about where we're up to with HS2, what we do as an innovation team, and then getting into the challenges and the key areas and insights for yourselves. If we can go to the next screen, what we can do is kind of talk you through where we're up to with HS2 and kind of what the scale and scope is of what the current demand is. So for us as an innovation team, we work much of a much larger project within the client, and we're only a small team of about 7 or 8 of us. What we try and do is work closely with the supply chain partners, which are of a significant scale, to de-risk technology, whether that be disruptive technology such as yourselves from the Accelerator point of view, which is a very key program of ours to initiate innovation within the supply chain, but also incentivize that as well. And then to scale that solution, to work with our supply chain to scale the solutions that are coming forward through yourselves today, and ensuring that the SMEs have a strong sway and say in terms of how we deploy technologies and how we do new things within the project, whether that be across civils, rail systems, stations, and today we'll touch a bit on operations and maintenance and asset management as well. So as you probably heard a lot in the news about HS2, we're currently, the length of the track is 140 miles going from London to Birmingham at this time, and then we'll look further on in terms of what that means further up towards Manchester. There's obviously a lot of discussions going on that in the news as well. But for us, it's important for you to understand the scale of what this is and what this mega project is for the UK and how it sits within Europe as having one of the largest supply chains within Europe. So we can feed that solution that whatever you have, we can accelerate that into our supply chain. So it's just really key for the challenges that we mentioned today, and also for you guys to understand this is a massive project and a massive opportunity for yourselves and for us to introduce new technologies. So if we move on to the next slide, a little bit of an update of where we're up to. I think realistically we're at our peak in terms of civils delivery. So that's everything before railway systems installation. You can see in the top left around the Clone Valley Viaduct around the Chilterns. That's the largest viaduct in the UK, and that's just been completed. So it gives you an idea of where we are at with Mainwork Civils and the extent of some of these assets that we're talking about. We've got hundreds of viaducts, bridges across the UK to ensure that everything aligns with how it should, and everything that we kind of blend into the natural environment, and that links very well into the next one with the green tunnels in Area Central, and that's working with EKFB, one of our big supply chain partners, which are made up of a joint venture. So talking about that kind of joint venture approach that's kind of made up of Eiffage, Kia, Ferrovial, BAM, and across the length of this route, we've got key parent companies that where we can work with you and with them to not only deploy your technology across HS2, but to scale wider across the industry. These green tunnels as well are there to form into the natural landscape and to make sure that HS2 is doing everything it can in terms of managing its ecological commitments in terms of what we've done there. A little bit more of a stations view this time on the bottom left hand corner. Old Oak Common, just in London, on the edge of London. That's currently being built at this time. The box structure, the underground box structure, so all the trains come in from an underground point of view, it's just been completed in terms of box structure, and they're underway with 14 new platforms that will hopefully feed into Euston and feed out towards Birmingham. And then you'll see on the bottom right there as well, Curzon Street Station. So these are the viaduct piers that are currently being built. I think anyone that travels between Birmingham and London currently, you'll see the extent of the work that's going on just outside of New Street and Moore Street. The piers and the viaducts are very much underway, and you can see the evidence of where the railway will sit and where it will feed into the new Curzon station. So really exciting to see that progress. And I think one final thing on this isn't on the picture. We'll soon be letting the rail systems contracts, hopefully this year. It should be this year, if not like the next couple of months. And that's going to be a multi-billion-pound contract and something that really takes us from the next stage to what is and what will be and look like a railway. And then next slide, perfect. We mentioned about innovation. We're only a small team, but we feel we have a huge impact across HS2. Our whole aim is across value and return on investment. So we have a fund each year to invest in SMEs, solutions, and deliver them through the supply chain so we can make cost savings, make baseline savings, reduce carbon, increase health and safety, and look at from an environmental point of view, how can we become better? So you can see the significance across that. And what's key to say here is that we've got a portfolio of projects. About 70% of that is made up of SMEs like yourselves on the call today. We see it as so important to take SMEs through this process, and we see them as a disruptive force to be able to deliver the railway in a new way, hopefully on time as well, and to budget. That's the main focus, is now to stick to what we've got and use the technologies and the people on the call to support us with that program. And then what's in it for you? If we go to the next slide now, we get a really good view of the Accelerator program is a huge asset for us at HS2. We have many frameworks in place to help us innovate, and this is one's key, to work with Connected Places Catapult and to deliver not just the value to us, but the value to you, and leave a legacy across what HS2 is doing as a project to bring SMEs into the mainstream, to bring them into the industry where it's not just now for HS2, it's in future projects, and we're changing the ways we work. That's what we really want to do. And again, you can see from your point of view, the investment increases, the scale increases, the growth increases for your businesses, and that's proven when you come onto the accelerator process. I think we need to just update these numbers as well, because we're currently going through our 6th cohort, and that was taking on another 6 SMEs, and we'll take on another 6 SMEs for this cohort and cohort 7. So that'll go up to 31 startups supported. The feedback has been excellent, and the pilots and projects that we support by de-risking that technology and running them out on site so everybody gets visibility is huge, and you can see the success rate through that as well. It's really kind of want to play the importance of what SMEs are for us. I think that gives a little bit of an overview of what we wanted to say from a HS2 point of view. You can read all you want in the press and everything about what it is, but from an innovation perspective, we're really driving this forward, and the accelerator sits alongside some of the best banking fintech accelerators you'll see in the UK, and it's proven to do so. So thanks for that. I'm going to now move on to the program challenges, and hopefully I'll split this with Rob. I'll open up. I'm going to make this a little bit more scripted, so I do apologize. just on the basis I don't want to miss anything out for you guys. It's really important that we say exactly what we're looking for. We've been working really strongly with the asset management teams, the operational teams, and the site teams to understand what their key challenges are. Understanding what their key challenges are really key, because we don't want to be going out to market and thinking, getting a really good solution, but it's not the demand. This is demand at the moment. These are our key challenges across HS2. It's interesting. Rob and I have been working on the Accelerator for probably 4 years now. Rob setting it up and working with CP on that, and me kind of taking over a little bit in the last couple of years. But it's interesting to see how we've moved on from various civils demand and a site demand that now that's at its peak. We need to look at other areas where we're innovating. So our first one is looking at asset management, and for this challenge, we're looking at solutions that include how do we accurately monitor the condition of rail assets, including track, signalling, OLE, points and crossing, structures, earthworks, telecoms, the whole lot, cabling, drainage, and station assets as well. You've got to think of everything realistically, but predominantly the ones where the assets are remote, underground, and inaccessible environments as well. That's going to be really key in terms of how we look at asset management. So it's really difficult to get to, it's potentially unsafe to get to. How do we monitor and manage them assets over a period of time? So realistically, everything you can think of within the rail environment, including structures and buildings. So don't just think track, think stations, viaducts, and the amount of land that HS2 has around it as well. It's really important for us. The key as well is to focus on solutions being predictive. This railway will last 100 years, hopefully, and we need to make sure that we proactively manage these assets, limit downtime, and ensure the best possible service for you and the public. Where appropriate, please include detail around identification of common failure modes for different types of assets, and suggest preventative measures to extend their lifespan and advanced analytics to manage their lifespan as well. And finally, how do we bring in potential different data sets? So don't just think within one data sets. How can we bring them together, where from assets, operations, environmental, how can we bring them data sets together to better understand how we manage them assets? And then finally, in a similar vein, let's focus on the data side of it as well. How can we ensure the integrity of that asset condition and data throughout its life cycle? How do we standardize and automate asset data collection and reporting across different suppliers, contractors, and all different feeds of data? How do we integrate diverse assets data from different sources, such as maintenance teams, monitoring equipment, external suppliers, to ensure that we don't have data silos when we move forward and we have the best possible insight of how we need to manage and collect our data? And finally, we're looking at prevention of data loss and data corruption, which compromises asset integrity and the event of system failures and power outages as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a view of our asset management scope. I think it's really exciting. It's something that's a bit more railway focused than it has before, but also it includes the whole, don't just think of assets as rail, think of the whole land with it and every kind of building and structure that comes along with it as well. So you probably got bored of hearing my voice for a little bit, so I'm going to pass over to Rob and he can read out a second challenge.
Thanks, John. Morning, everybody. Like John has just alluded to, HS2 has been very much focused on the delivery of the capital programme. What we're starting to see as part of this cohort is very much a focus on an operational HS2, and hence the challenge for future-proofing operations. So as we're introducing new technologies and advancements throughout the programme, we're also aware of some of the risks that they can pose, some of them digital, cyber-based, some of them physical. So two types of challenges that we're ideally looking for solutions to work with you, support your businesses grow, scale, so that you could serve HS2 supply chain and this bespoke program that we've delivered with the CPC team, who can really hopefully support you in achieving some of those goals. So the two challenges, the first one, a more digital focus on some of those cyber threats that could present itself to a digital modern railway, which HS2 is aspiring to achieve and deliver. And that could be anything from solutions that could help to learn from behaviours where incidents occur. It could be monitoring and reviewing and verifying different sorts of data sets, behaviors, anomalies, triggers that occur, and helping HS2 understand how they can implement some of those security systems that maybe continuously verify some of the breaches that might occur. It could be detecting potential corruption and tampering to the line. It could be tampering to some of the digital critical systems that we will be implementing up and down the route, but also then automating some of the response actions that could trigger upon detection of threats and incidents for our critical systems. Then also from a physical perspective, we're very much aware and cognizant of some of the incidents that Network Rail and HS1 occur. That could range from anything from theft to intrusion of the railway, to that could be humans, that could be animals, that could be infestations at our railway systems and our rail stations. If you look up and down the country at the different types of stations that we have, typically on a Network Rails route, there are different sizes, different scales. HS2 will have 4 stations if you're including Euston. Main way through our build, we're at Old Oak Common, down as our London terminus at the moment, moving to Curzon Street in Birmingham and interchange at the airport. All very large stations, each presenting slight different challenges. However, the scale of those they're going to require some technology to help us identify where physical incidents, threats, obstructions, trespassing take place. And then you've actually got the linear section of the route itself. Like John said, 100 and something miles up and down the country. It's very difficult to physically monitor a linear asset. We've seen some great learning from our civils project, where we've been using some AI capability to detect intrusion along the route. And we'd like to see that carry forward onto the operational HS2 as well. So that we can be smarter about how we're mitigating some of these risks, about how we can automate some of the responses to try to tackle and mitigate any significant issue to the operational railway, but also looking at more dynamic responses about how we can evaluate the risk and how we actually implement a solution or response to deal with that, whether that's real time, whether that's based on a predefined criteria. We're looking for lots of different solutions here, and I think the reason why we're looking for lots of different solutions, and this is quite open to physical, digital, and all sorts of threats in the middle, is because we are mobilizing these contracts, and we have probably 2 years until we start the build work on some of the railway systems contracts. So we've got about a 2-year design period that allows us to review, iterate, trial, test, and find the right solutions for their appropriate needs. And then we can work with those contracts to implement them and take them forward. And then also working with our railway systems, our asset management, operation and maintenance teams, as they build the need and the requirements for operating and maintaining some of our green, grey and actual operation of the railway. I'll hand back to John.
Thank you very much, Rob. And then finally, we get to look at the final challenge. It's a really interesting one because we're taking a little bit of a different approach this time as well. If you look at the opportunities that could make a difference today on site, this is one of them. We still have a few years left of civils construction, whether that be line of route or stations construction, site activities. They'll continue all the way through to rail systems installation. And there's loads of opportunities to roll out new tech and increase site productivity. We plan, this has always been a digital accelerator, and that's not to say we've not ventured into some tangible approaches, some physical solutions before, but realistically this challenge focus around the digital but also the physical. So we'll use and we'll pull on our other framework partners that we have across the industry to really help support and deliver physical solutions within this environment and roll them out on site to help you scale and to support us in productivity. So how can we automate, the challenge being how can we automate on-site installation and fit out that may be across civils, stations, rail systems, that will improve productivity and reduce risk. I'll touch on some of the main potential use cases, but as you can imagine, a project this size, there'll be many. You might have some questions around this. The plan is to maximize on-site productivity by harnessing innovative automation technologies to complete installation and fit out activities in different environments that are potentially unsafe for workers or normal labor to be in there. I think that's really key to the kind of, these are automating the repetitive installation opportunities that we have out there, fit out activities across major contracts and sites, with the adaptability being key to be involved in various construction activities. This could be stations fit out, systems installation, tunnel fit out, and we'll try and touch on a few more of these in a second. The aim for us is to significantly increase productivity by speeding up installation and fit out processes and minimizing downtime where we do see manual labor limitations. We want that integration with digital tools that adheres to the design and engineering specification and standards, basically automated verification alongside that physical tool and that automation project. And finally, remote monitoring and control capability, allowing operators to oversee and manage tasks from a safe distance. This is about HS2 becoming safer and more productive in these environments. If we think of specific examples, I suppose let's have a think about the station fit out. So we've got significant assets such as roofs that need to be undertaken and built under clean environments and clean areas. Rail systems activities and installation, that's soon to start and the contracts are going to be awarded soon. Think of the amount of different assets in terms of rail systems that could be automated. We've got a potential now where this isn't just a normal railway possession. This is the length of nearly the half of the country. So we've got the real opportunity to be able to automate and introduce new technology, tools, and robotics into this area. So for us, we can have the potential to really increase what we do on a massive scale, and automation will be key for us in terms of how we do that at speed and on budget. So really appreciate you kind of taking time to go through these challenges with us. And now we can pass over back to Jazz, who'll take you through the CPC support and kind of what's the development of the program with you. So thank you all.
Thank you so much for that, John. That was really, really helpful. Just as John says there, I'm just going to go through now who CPC are, who Connected Places Catapult are, and just a quick introduction. I know we've had a lot of people join the call since the very beginning, so just briefly to introduce myself, I'm Jasmine Pollock. I'm the Accelerator Programme Manager for the HS2 Accelerator, and I've been working with the HS2 team, John and Rob, since this all kicked off 4 years ago, kind of September 2020 time. So yes, very excited to have you all here and excited to teach you a little bit more about the programme and the opportunity. So who are Connected Places Catapult? Well, we are the UK's innovation accelerator for cities, transport and place leadership. Our kind of role is to help connect markets and bring together SMEs with wider stakeholders, whether that's industry or academia, or even wider than that, kind of more of our innovation partners that sit outside and maybe more in the private sector or in testing and facilities. Connect everyone together to try and accelerate growth opportunities and help validate new technologies, new ideas, and really bring those out into the market. The Catapult network actually comprises of 9 Catapult centres across the UK. Each of them have their own focus on a specific domain area or a specific technology area. And for us at Connected Places Catapult, we're focused very much on places and people, and that includes everything in between places and people, such as transport and infrastructure. And that's kind of perfectly explains why HS2 and ourselves are partnered together, because I think that's ultimately the aim of what HS2 are trying to achieve as well. Some of the this is our current strategy, but we are currently going through a strategy refresh at the moment. But these are the kind of 3 innovation imperatives, which are essentially kind of our strategic domains, and then the market verticals that sit within those strategic domains. So for us, it's all about driving human experience, connected intelligence, and responding to climate action within the market verticals that you see here. So obviously rail and stations, which very much sits, which HS2 very much sits within, but then also kind of infrastructure and everything around that: homes, housing, ports, etc. Just moving on briefly now to the Accelerator programs here at Connected Places Catapult. I think some of these are now no longer active, but they're all very recent. And these are just gives you an idea of kind of how our Accelerator programs span across those different market verticals. Obviously quite a lot in the roads and network space, and then also in the rail and station space, but we also work across aviation, maritime, and the integrated infrastructure and place leadership. And that's definitely an area that we're getting more and more demand within, is how we drive innovation and growth within specific regions or specific places. So that's really, really exciting. At Connected Places Catapult, we don't just do accelerator programs either. That is obviously very much what I'm talking about today, and the team that I sit within, but there are many other projects and opportunities that we run at Connected Places Catapult, and if you're interested in finding out more about those, feel free to check out our website for any upcoming events or any upcoming opportunities, just so you can see kind of the breadth and kind of width of how we try and address any innovation failures and market failures, and how we drive innovation across those verticals. Just going to briefly go through the program overview with you all now. So you may well have already seen this if you have checked out the opportunity page, but these are the upcoming key dates for the program. So we have got just 3 weeks left, or just shy of 3 weeks left of the application window. Our application deadline is on the 13th of October. We then will be assessing all of our applications the following week and be contacting all applicants on the 21st of October to let them know if they've been successful or not. If you have been successfully shortlisted, you will then be invited to an interview, and you will receive that notification on the 21st of October. All of the interviews will be taking place on the 30th and the 31st of October. So I would ask that all applicants try and keep their diaries as flexible as possible on those 2 dates, if possible. We can't quite accommodate exact time slots, so it's best if you can just try and keep your diary as flexible as possible across those 2 dates. We'll be then, after the interviews, collating all of the scores and feedback across all the panelists, and we have panelists from across HS2's domain teams and the challenge owners, as well as internally at Connected Places Catapult, and then some of our mentors on the program as well are also part of that interview process. On the 4th of November is when we'll collate all of their scores and feedback, and we'll be announcing who the cohort is and selecting who the cohort is. Our welcome day is on the 3rd of December, so we have a month between selection and welcome day to do some onboarding activities, and that's just to make sure that we fully understand what your needs are as a cohort and as individual businesses, and to help curate kind of that bespoke program design that I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. And then the program itself would end in April 2025 at a showcase event, and that showcase event would encompass some of our alumni SMEs as well, but ultimately it's a day to focus on your success through the program, any projects that you've secured, an opportunity to really share and exhibit and share the learnings of being on the program, and how you're going to be implementing your technology across HS2 and the wider industry. The program support itself, this is kind of a bit of a breakdown of some headline, I guess, objectives of what we're trying to achieve with the SMEs that get selected onto the program. So ultimately, we'll be initially connecting you with sponsors and stakeholders. That's across HS2's internal teams, but also wider than that, the supply chain and the wider industry. Obviously, there is a huge supply chain that sits underneath HS2, and a lot of those are joint venture partners. So within those joint ventures, there's also parent companies that we can also introduce you to, and that's kind of how we try and grow innovation into the industry, as opposed to keeping it contained just within HS2. So there's so many opportunities to make new commercial relationships and to hopefully unlock project opportunities with all these people that you're meeting relevant to the challenge themes and the domains that you're looking at. Once you've been connected, you would discover in a little bit more detail with these people what their challenges are, what their needs are, and how your product or solution might fit to solve those challenges. And the whole aim of that really is to kind of bolster the product market fit and accelerate your commercial readiness for your solution. Throughout the programme, you'll also have support from Connected Places Catapult, and we have a number of internal experts that would sit within each of these challenge areas that can help you with any product development or any value proposition development. And we also have a consortium of mentors who are industry experts and specialists in areas such as procurement readiness and marketing and PR, commercial strategy, who can really help you with scaling your business and scaling your value proposition across a mega project like HS2. Of course, being part of the program also means that you have access to exclusive events and exclusive opportunities to kind of promote your business and shout about who you are that you otherwise wouldn't have. This is just a very broad skeleton or support timeline for what you can expect as being part of the program. As I mentioned previously there, throughout the 5 months, you will have access to bespoke one-to-one mentorship, and that would be dependent on what we uncover during the onboarding phase with regards to what your needs are, whether you're seeking investment right now, whether you're not, if you need any help with your marketing and PR strategy, your overall commercial strategy, etc. And that would sit alongside months 1 to 5. Now, it's really important to us that we're not forcing you to sit through group workshops and masterclasses on things that you might already know about, or equally teaching you to suck eggs. We want it to be as bespoke and useful to you as possible. So almost all of our mentorship is on a one-to-one basis where you're purely working just with your specific mentor on the areas that we've specifically identified together are development areas for yourself. As I said here, this is a rough skeleton of what you can expect as a timeline. Now, it's slightly different for everyone who's on the program, but during month 1 is when you would be initially connecting with all of the key sponsors and stakeholders relevant to the challenge themes within HS2 and the supply chain. After meeting all those stakeholders, obviously month 2 and 3 is when you'd be discovering and identifying what their needs are, what their challenges are, what requirements they might have, and how your solution might be able to have value to solve those needs and requirements. And that's when you start to identify use cases and project ideas with these key sponsors and stakeholders. And then during month 4 and 5 is when you would be developing those use cases and project ideas in more detail, really trying to understand and articulate what the ROI is, and shape that up into an actual project proposal, which you would then submit before the end of the program to be approved and granted funding for through HS2 or through, if you're through the supply chain, commercial funding through the supply chain. Just very quickly, the program benefits are pretty much fourfold, I would say. We've got kind of a 4-tiered pyramid here. Obviously, at the micro level, the benefits for small businesses are massive. Getting to work with a mega project like HS2 and all of the industry that sits around it and underneath it is absolutely huge for bolstering your credibility and your recognition. You obviously get to explore commercial project opportunities with the HS2 and the wider industry that otherwise there isn't really a direct pathway or channel to do so. You can unlock innovation funding for proof of concept projects where you've got a technology that's been piloted or demonstrated in the real world, but perhaps there's a slightly different use case that you want to use it for, and that's where we could do some proof of concept work. You can build out new use cases and bolster your product market fit, exactly as I said earlier, by getting to meet so many relevant challenge sponsors and stakeholders across such a huge supply chain. It really does help you very quickly validate and understand exactly what's important in this scale and for this project, and how your solution can develop the strongest value proposition. We also obviously give you access to industry-specific tech investors. We have a very, very large network, both within CPC and also HS2 themselves. So any introductions to investors is obviously very easy for us to do for you. Just moving on now to the next level, obviously the benefits for HS2 are that they can support their strategic innovation goals and innovation legacy. They can enhance their project agility and de-risk decision making. They can reduce cost and carbon from their project baseline, and obviously they're looking to future-proof this railway. I mean, ultimately, this is something that's being developed has been being developed for over a decade, but this is a project that's going to go hopefully hundreds and hundreds of years into the future from now. So it's really important that we try and bring as much really innovative technologies into the program as early as possible, so that the railway operations aren't out of date, which is really hard to do when we're talking about hundreds of years in the future. But that's why it's really important that we try and identify really cutting edge stuff and really de-risk it through the accelerator. The wider industry benefits are that we can de-risk innovation and technologies and use cases for them through the HS2 Accelerator and through trialing on HS2. What we've seen a lot is that projects through the Accelerator that have been done in a HS2 specific environment have then gone on to be procured later by parent companies and the wider industry once they've seen how successful it was within the the sphere of HS2 and applying that wider to wider projects across the UK and even potentially internationally. It does also give the opportunity to collaborate on innovation projects where they can share learnings and value adds across different industry stakeholders. And most importantly to us, I think it really does catalyse that industry step change. It really does allow us to start from just one programme and drive change across an entire industry. Obviously the benefits of innovation as well, attract new talent and new skills, and we know that's a huge barrier in construction, is trying to make sure that we're attracting future generations and new skills. And then just finally, very much, I guess why Connected Places Caspot are so heavily invested in this programme as well is the economic benefits. I mean, we're cultivating entrepreneurship and innovation through this programme, creating new jobs for future generations. And as I was mentioning before, creating new jobs that demand the new skills that the future generations have. And also we're influencing policy making to support the new ways of working and to support innovation and emerging technologies for the future. John briefly went through this earlier, the programme success, so I'm not going to go through it in loads of detail again. Exactly as John said, this actually only includes the SMEs from cohort 1 to 5, because cohort 6 is still an active cohort, but that will be 6 more startups that have been supported. And to date, it looks like we've got 6 projects that are being developed or close to being approved. So it's very exciting, and it just goes to show as long as the solution that you put forward has a really strong challenge fit, and you get through the selection process, the value that you get through the programme is incredible. I mean, the amount of investment that's been raised post programme, just because of the fact that they were able to get so much from the recognition of HS2 as a clear client, and then all of the wider industry support and access that they received is phenomenal. But you can see there as well, 24 pilot projects awarded out of 25 startups, and we're hopefully looking to have 30, close to 30 pilot projects awarded by the end of cohort 6 as well. Just going to go through the application and eligibility criteria now with you all, and I'll try and whiz through this. There is also application guidance on our opportunity page, which includes basically all of this information. So if you do want to go through that, feel free to do so. Just some very basic eligibility criteria for us now. So applicants must be micro, small or medium-sized enterprises. They must be headquartered or based within the UK or Europe. And applicants must have a solution which is technology readiness level 5 and above. Now, if you're not familiar with the technology readiness levels, or you don't like them, what we essentially mean by that is the solution has been tested or demonstrated in its intended environment. Even if that's at a relatively small scale, it still just needs to have been tested and demonstrated in its relevant or intended environment. And that's kind of the minimum that we will accept. So looking at the application questions now, these are the kind of 5 areas in which the application is split up into. One thing you will notice about our application is that it's not very long, and the open questions that we do ask you, which are quite minimal, we only ask for 150 words. We do ask that you try and write 150 words, as that's what we consider the kind of minimum viable answer. So try not to write anything too short, but I would say 150 words is what we ask for all of our open-ended questions. So it's not, you don't have to write a dissertation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So in the financial section, we're asking if the company is profitable, yes or no, and if no, how many months of financial runway does the business have? If it is less than 6 months, we do ask how you plan to sustain the operations through the programme's lifespan, and this is purely just from our perspective to de-risk. If you do have less than 6 months financial runway, it puts a lot of pressure on us to be able to help you within 6 months if you don't have any other financial means, or you don't have any other kind of business pipeline to get you through that process. Has the business ever received any grant funding or investment? Yes or no? If yes, please provide details, including values and funding/investors. And is the business planning to raise an investment round in the next 12 to 16 months? If yes, what stage and what will the funds be used for? This is really helpful to us, as it's investment readiness is like a big part of our programme, and introduction to investor is a big part of our programme. So if you're saying yes, it's just really helpful for us to understand what you're looking for and what stage of funding you're at. In terms of the next section is around technology or the technical questions. We ask what challenge you're applying to out of the three and what problem in respect to that challenge you're trying to solve. So this is essentially the problem statement. What exactly are you trying to solve? Because these are three very high level themes. So we just want to get a better idea of exactly the problem within those challenges that you're trying to solve. Describing the solution and how it addresses that problem statement and why your solution is better than the status quo or the current approach. How do you differentiate the technical capabilities of your solution from your competitors? And what is your technology readiness level? Again, that's just a basic eligibility question that we just need to include in there. Within the people section, we're asking what the skills and experiences of your current team. Now, it's really important here, again, there's only 150 words limit. We don't want a CV of every single person in your team or even every single person within your leadership team. We're really asking here what the core skills and experience are of your team that make you a good fit for this program. So what's your background? What's your credibility, essentially? What makes you credible specifically for working with HS2 and the kind of rail and construction industry? What are the strengths and weaknesses of your current team? Now, again, this is really important that you're honest to this question, because for us, it doesn't matter what your weaknesses are. What's really important to us is how you aim to address those weaknesses. And actually, it's really important for us that you have a good understanding of where your team is at and where you want your team to be. So that's kind of what the question 2 and 3 here are asking, what your strengths and weaknesses are and how you're expecting to develop your team or expand your team to address those weaknesses. How many full-time staff you currently employ, and whether the business operates as a consultancy firm. Now, on that final question around operation as a consultancy firm, we're not really looking for startups that that don't really own their own IP, that they operate as a consultancy and they only do work based on whatever their client is asking them to do. They don't actually have their own mission or their own IP. So that's why we ask that question there. In terms of the commercial section, what we're asking for here is what commercial traction has the company had and what customers have been worked with to date, what project success the company has had and what measurable benefits have been realized for customers or partners. Now, this is really important that any traction or projects that you've had to date, it's really important that there have been some measurable benefits, whether that's testimonials, but ideally we would like to see an X percentage of time saved, or a cost saving attributed, a carbon saving attributed, whatever specifically your product is looking to solve. Be really useful here to have some form of measurable benefit with any of the past projects you've done. Obviously, appreciating the fact that if it's a small scale project, that might be a small scale number, but using extrapolation and things like that to give us an idea of what the overall benefits could be for your solution. And then finally, who are your competitors and how do you differentiate from them? Now, we had an earlier question around the technical capability differentiation, but this is more around your competitors in terms of your identity, your USP as a company. How do you differentiate from them? And what makes you different? What makes you better than them? That might also feed into the technology side of things, of course, but that's in that section as well. And then just finally, the program fit section. Now, this is looking specifically at your use case or your value proposition for HS2. So what is that intended use case or proposition? And obviously, the whole point of the program, if you are successful, is to help develop and unlock new use cases and propositions. So obviously for us, it doesn't mean you're exactly going to get a project doing what you've proposed here, but it just gives us a good understanding of how you expect your solution to fit within HS2 and what you expect or what your intended use case you think would be for the technology that you're developing. What would be the expected benefits or value add based on your use case or proposition, and how would you measure the expected benefits? What are the risks, dependencies, and assumption of your use case? So if there's any specific data that you need access to, if there's any specific teams or resources, etc., they're kind of dependencies, and then risks and assumptions, obviously quite self-explanatory, but is there anything you're assuming which massively affects your use case or value proposition, assuming certain systems are in place or certain technologies already in use, etc. Is the company currently on a business support program? That's just a very mandatory question that we ask just to understand if your resources are spread too thinly at the moment, if you're already on another program, that's just for us to understand that a little bit more. Can your company commit to attending in-person activities with project stakeholders across London and Birmingham? This is really important to us, as we typically have around one face-to-face event a month, I would say, or at least for the first couple of months, where we're doing those connecting days, where we get you to meet different stakeholders and demo your product to different stakeholders. It's really important that we try and do that in person, because there's so many networking opportunities, I think, that that flourish a lot better in an in-person environment and in-person workshops. And does any member of the company's team who will be involved with the programme identify as a person with a disability or a person with accessibility needs? That should say, if yes, please provide any details on how we can make accommodations for those needs. So that's just, again, to help us operate the programme and ensure that it's accessible for everyone. Just finally, before we go on to the Q&A section, I just want to go through the scoring criteria at a very high level. I appreciate I've been talking for about 10-15 minutes now, so you're probably all sick of me. But the technology section that I mentioned before will be scoring based on the potential impact of your solution, the feasibility of your solution, the novelty and the scalability of your solution. In the commercial section, we'll be scoring against the product market fit for your solution, your business model, your market potential, your financial risk, and the return on investment potential. In the people section, we'll be scoring against skills, experience, team potential, and operational capacity. Team potential is talking about that strengths and weaknesses area that I mentioned before. It's around, okay, there are weaknesses now, but what's the potential of the team going forward? And again, it's that understanding of where your weaknesses are that's really important to us as well. And then program fit is looking at is scoring against your challenge fit, the eligibility criteria, the proposition feasibility, and the proposition impact that you've included. That's the end of the slides for today's session. So we'll now be going into a live Q&A. I just want to go through again, all of this information is pretty much available in the application guidance document that can be found on our opportunity page. So please do feel free to look through that. That has a full breakdown of the scoring criteria as well, not just those high level headings that I kept to on the last slide. I'm now just going to go through into the live Q&A. So I will read the Q&A box. Please do drop any questions in that you have that you'd like to get answered. It's just loading up for me now. Apologies, bear with me. The Q&A box itself is just loading, so give me just a second. I'm not sure if Rob or John, you guys can see the Q&As. Oh no, here we go. Got one question come up now. So the question that we've got here in the Q&A is, the new program challenges for this accelerator are niche and specific. Would you agree niche solutions can never solve these challenges, but rather a collaborative effort? What would you say to that, John?
I'll come off you. I think generally I do agree with that. I think the way that we build foundations of how we build the contracts and what they say and what they instruct as part of our standards and works informations, I think that is the main guidelines of whether we succeed or fail. I think you look at civils right now, they've been underway for multiple years, and them contracts how they were 5, 6, 7 years ago. Technology changes over that time. This is an extensive project, so we need to change with it. We don't always have the capability to change or IT infrastructure to that scale, and especially to instruct it to a supply chain as large as HS2 has. I think there are many difficulties to it. Where there are opportunities still, whether it be in rail systems, operations, maintenance, we are trying to understand that where we can set them works information in the correct way and make them as wide as possible and innovative as possible. We are trying to do that. I think there's still an opportunity for operations and maintenance to be able to take on these significant wider challenges. But I think they're the guiding principles we set up anyway in the works information. I think we see the challenges that are in our current contracts. We get it from the SMEs internally, and that's the instruction we follow. And that's where we have seen savings before. The wider part of it, we should be setting up from a base, and that is something realistically we can get involved with. But for our challenges and for the accelerator's purpose of it, I think it's to look at the challenges that we currently have and say we need to be specific. We need to kind of focus on that. There's definitely a lot going on around the wider benefit and the wider management of infrastructure and IT and how that changes with AI and the significant programs going on outside of innovation that helps us support with that as well. But I think it's a fair point. I think we just got to be careful that not every contract is new, and we've got to work with the challenges we do have.
Perfect. That makes sense, John. Thank you for that. Just a couple of questions here. So is it possible to apply for one of the challenges with another eligible startup in order to provide a complete solution? What do you think, John, to that question?
I don't think we've had that question before, have we?
No, I don't think we have.
It's quite an interesting one. I don't know. I don't think I'm really against it. I'm just thinking from a support point of view, from a client perspective. Building these solutions up and coming up with a more or a larger impact and more innovation is something we kind of want to do. But I think it's something we're going to have to speak offline with Jazz, because this isn't just about winning a contract or a trial. This is about supporting you to scale and making sure you get the benefit out of it from a marketing investment approach. And to think that as working as a team of SMEs would be quite interesting. I can imagine from CPC's perspective, a little bit of a challenge. So we'll speak about that and see where that comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got Stephen's name here. So I think yeah, from my perspective, it would be also good to understand the nature of that collaboration, like who is doing what. Is it two very digital solutions coming together to build an even bigger digital solution, or is one simply just like a hardware supplier, one's a digital supplier? It would be really good to understand the actual nature of that relationship before I can actually answer that question. So I'd say, Stephen, if it's possible for you to send me an email directly, my email address is on the opportunity page, the application website, and I can speak to you offline about that separately, because I think that probably needs a little bit more of a specific conversation around. There's another question here around if the technology is applicable for more than one challenge, should you pick one, apply twice, or build both challenges into a single application? I would say unless the solution for each challenge is vastly different, keep it as one application and try and focus specifically on the one that you feel like you have the strongest use case for. Obviously, there are overlaps across the themes as well. We are appreciative of that. So just pick the one theme, unless you have two very different solutions and two very different use cases, then there's no reason to have more than one application, if that makes sense. John and Rob, would you agree with that approach?
Yeah, makes sense for us. It makes it easier as well, so that's good.
Perfect. And then one question here around the problem statement and company don't have word limits. They do have word limits. They're 150 words. I might not have been on my slide, but I promise all of the open questions have 150 word limits. I will double check and go back onto the application and just make sure that's the case. But every single open question is 150 words. So we just want it to be as concise as possible, and we don't want it to be too draining on your time either. So the next question here is, what is the scale of funding support through the programs, and what is expected percentage of contribution from individual applicants? Very good question. The funding support, so we don't provide any funding for being part of the program, just for participating in the program. Other than in-kind funding, of course, we pay mentors, and the HS2 teams and wider supply chain teams take their time away to support you, but there's no monetary value that you would have paid to you just for being part of the program. The funding comes from the actual trials that you secure through, or trial that you secure through the program. In terms of the contribution that you would expect to provide, it's a very good question. I think on a weekly basis or fortnightly basis, you would have a recurring meeting with your dedicated innovation manager. So that would be either John or Rob or other members of the HS2 innovation team, who would be specifically there to help guide you through some of their innovation pathways and help you understand the innovation process at a level at a level that you'd understand and can kind of get through the program as smoothly and seamlessly as possible. We then, like I said, also do have around about once a month, I would say, a group event or engagement day, as they would be called, where you would meet maybe a key sponsor, and that would be the whole cohort as a whole. So it's quite hard to give an exact number of the amount of time that you would expect, but I would say maybe a day a week, if that. That might even be too much. But I don't know, John and Rob, based on your experience of working closely with the SMEs, how much time you think they would need to put into it.
Yeah, I think obviously the meetings, the engagement with the supply chain. I'm guessing if on average you'd probably want put one person, maybe one day a week, maybe a day and a half a week, kind of contribution towards that. And from our point of view as well, like you say, the scale of the funding is not there until the trial is won and a business case is developed. That's not because the funding isn't there. We have significantly funded the majority of SMEs that have come through this. We just want to find the right business case first. We don't want to invest in something that the supply chain isn't demanding or does not want to move forward with. But as you can see from the numbers before, the majority do win a trial there. And plus the exposure you get is something that you can't really put a value on. Like say, this isn't just a HS2 accelerator, it's a DFT accelerator. Think of all the industry partners that we work with and the engagement sessions that you could have, or the exposure you get to arm's length bodies such as NR, Network Rail, should I say, or East West, but also highways and all different government organisations. It really is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, that's perfect. The next question is, who owns the IP built during the pilot, and is the funding provided for the pilot an investment in the form of equity? I can answer half of that question. So the funding is not equity, or it's actually a value that you get paid. Generally, as standard, I think most of our innovation pilots are up to £50,000. But depending on certain circumstances, if there's money coming in from the supply chain or from commercial sources, that can be higher. But as HS2's cap on innovation funding for pilot projects is typically £50,000. So that's what you can expect to be paid. In terms of the IP, I would expect it stays with you. John and Rob, I'll hand over to you guys just to clarify.
That's the plan. Everything stays with you in terms of IP, whether that's designed or built within the funding opportunity. From a HS2 project point of view, we are a project. We just want to see this as a legacy and to see it make savings for us, make it productivity advances, and also whatever benefits case it does have for us, that makes no difference in the IP. This is legacy. This is about building new technologies and de-risking technology for future projects and industry.
Yeah, 100%. Has HS2 got or planned to get any enterprise asset management software? Is it already in place, particularly in stations? If so, do you know what this is?
From my view, I'll ask Rob, who's been closer to the asset management team throughout this process, but that is still very much in discussions. The contracts are not awarded in that area at the moment, so there probably will be a plan, but there's definitely certain aspects we are able to influence on that at the moment as well.
Yeah, exactly that, John.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Most recent question is, as far as the asset management challenge goes, is HS2 currently managing assets, or is this really about being ready for a future asset management regime? How does this affect projections around technology readiness level and pilot projects?
It's the perfect time. Realistically, we'll be taking over assets from Mainwork Civils next year. I think they're grey assets and potentially green assets as well. So realistically, we'll be taking over a small proportion in comparison to taking over the whole railway. But there is a period of time where we're going to have to manage as a project before it becomes an operational environment. So in terms of trial capabilities, I couldn't think of a better time that we're thinking at 2025, we're going to be taking over the assets, and we're also taking them over in not all at once. So it's a really good point to kind of manage ourselves in there and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Because HS2 are going to be the asset manager of a lot of things before the railways, even operational, right? So 100%. And just to clarify, grey assets, bridges, viaducts, things like that, green assets.
That's right, yeah.
Green assets are like land, ponds, biodiversity.
Yeah, you really wouldn't understand like the extent of what them assets look like, especially green and grey. It's just massive.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other questions? Mine hasn't refreshed yet, so apologies if you have just sent another one in. If there's any other questions, I'll just allow people another 30 seconds or so if there is any other additional questions. Perfect. I think that is the end of the session. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much for your questions. They were really insightful, and I think, yeah, very good to raise. If there is any questions that you think of after the fact, my email address is included on the opportunity page website. So please feel free to reach out to me directly. And if I need support from the HS2 team to answer any of those questions, I can absolutely get that support if needed. And just to clarify again, the deadline for the application is the 13th of October. That's 11:59 p.m. So essentially midnight on Sunday evening. And please make sure you do submit before then. If you need to, there are plenty of resources on the website as well, including our application guidance, our full challenge specification, which breaks down all of those challenge themes into individual bullet points, like John went through earlier, and John and Rob, sorry, went through earlier. So please do also use all of those resources that are available to you. But other than that, I think thank you so much, and I hope you'll have a lovely day and rest of the week.
Thanks all.
Take care. Bye-bye.